Welcome to Present Poetry. I'm your host, Erin Crittenden, and all poems within this podcast are either public domain or used with permission from the author or the author's estate. It's a fun time for poetry lovers of all ages, so sit back, relax, and get ready to hear some poems of the past and the present. This week's featured poet is John Keats. John Keats was born October 31st, 1795 in Moorgate, London, and was the eldest of 4 children. Keats went to a local school until 1803, when his parents sent him to the John Clarke School in Enfield, and that's where he met Charles Cowden Clarke, the son of the headmaster. Clarke would quickly become Keats's mentor and friend, introducing him to the Renaissance literature and fueling Keats's love for classics and history. Keats won his first academic prize in 1809, but that was overshadowed by his mother's tragic death in 1810 of tuberculosis. She left John and his siblings in the care of their grandmother, and Keats quit Clarke School to become an apprentice to Thomas Hammond, a surgeon and apothecary. During that time, Keats wrote his first poem, titled An Imitation of Spenser, and became inspired by other poets, such as Leigh Hunt and Lord Byron. However, he also wanted to be a doctor, so once he finished his apprenticeship with Hammond, Keats applied to be a medical student at Guy's Hospital and was quickly promoted to the equivalent of a junior house surgeon. That role came with a heavier workload, and Keats found himself with less time to write. That, along with financial issues, triggered periods of depression so severe that his brother George commented that John feared that he should never be a poet, and if he was not, he would destroy himself. In 1816, Keats earned his apothecary license, but firmly announced his decision to be a poet instead. Later that year, Leigh Hunt published Keats' sonnet, O Solitude, in his magazine. In October of that same year, Charles Clarke introduced Keats to Leigh Hunt for the first time, and the two became friends. 5 months later, Keats published his first collection of poems, some of which were heavily influenced by Leigh Hunt. Unfortunately, the book was a failure, and Keats switched publishers until he found a home with Taylor and Hesse. They were enthusiastic about his work and paid him in advance for his next collection. Hesse soon became a fast friend of Keats and introduced him to Richard Woodhouse, a lawyer who was deeply impressed by Keats's work. Woodhouse soon began collecting everything he could about Keats's poetry, and that collection is still one of the main sources of information about the poet today. This encouragement gave Keats the push he needed to become a full-time poet, and he ended up writing around 150 poems in his lifetime. In 1818, Keats began traveling the world with a walking tour of Scotland, Ireland, and the Lake District. However, after catching a cold or some other infection in the island of Mull, he traveled southward and ended up tending to his younger brother Tom, who was sick with tuberculosis. That spelled the beginning of the end, and John Keats died on February 28, 1821 in Rome at the age of 25. He was buried in the Protestant cemetery, and his headstone bears an inscription that reads, "This grave contains all that was mortal of a young English poet, who, on his deathbed, in the bitterness of his heart, at the malicious power of his enemies, desired these words to be engraved on his tombstone. Here lies one whose name was writ in water." We are reading from a collection of Keats's poems that was organized and published in 1909 by the Clarendon Press. This poem is called Fancy. Ever let the fancy roam, pleasure never is at home. At a touch sweet pleasure melteth, like to bubbles when rain pelteth. Then let winged fancy wander, through this thought still spread beyond her. Open wide the mind's cage door, she'll dart forth and cloudward soar. O sweet fancy, let her loose, summer's joys are spoilt by use, and the enjoying of the spring fades as does its blossoming. Autumn's red-lipped fruitage too, blushing through the mist and dew, cloys with tasting, what do then? Sit thee by the ingle, when the sere faggot blazes bright, spirit of a winter's night, when the soundless earth is muffled, and the caked snow is shuffled from the ploughboy's heavy shoon, when the night doth meet the noon. In a dark conspiracy, to banish even from her sky. Sit thee there and send abroad, with a mind self-overawed. Fancy, high-commissioned, send her, she has vassals to attend her. She will bring, in spite of frost, beauties that the earth hath lost. She will bring thee altogether all delights of summer weather, all the buds and bells of May, from dewy sward or thorny spray, all the heaped autumn's wealth, with a still, mysterious stealth. She will mix these pleasures up, like 3 fit wines in a cup, and thou shalt quaff it, thou shalt hear distant harvest carols clear, rustle of the reaped corn, sweet birds antheming the morn, and in the same moment, hark, 'tis the early April lark, or the rooks with busy caw, foraging for stick and straw. Thou shalt at one glance behold the daisy and the marigold, white-plumed lilies, and the first hedge-grown primrose that hath burst, shaded hyacinths alway, sapphire green of the mid-May, and every leaf and every flower pearled with the same self-shower. Thou shalt see the field mouse peep, meagre from its celled sleep, and the snake all winter thin cast on sunny bank its skin. Freckled nest eggs thou shalt see hatching in the hawthorn tree, when the hen bird's wing doth rest quiet on her mossy nest. Then the hurry and alarm, when the beehive casts its swarm. Acorns ripe down pattering, when the autumn breezes sing. O sweet fancy, let her loose, everything is spoiled by use. Where's the cheek that doth not fade, too much gazed at? Where's the maid, whose lip mature is ever new? Where's the eye, however blue, doth not weary? Where's the face, one would meet in every place? Where's the voice, however soft, one would hear so very oft? At a touch sweet pleasure melteth, like to bubbles when rain pelteth. Let then winged fancy find thee a mistress to thy mind. Dulcet eyes as Circe's daughters, ere the god of torment totter, how to frown and how to chide, with a waist and with a side, wide as Hebe's when her zone slept its golden clasp, and down fell her kirtle to her feet, while she held the goblet sweet, and Jove grew languid, break the mesh of the fancy's silken leash, quickly break her prison string, and such joys as these shall bring. Let the winged fancy roam, pleasure never is at home. This poem is called Ode on Melancholy. No, no, go not to Lethe, neither twist wolfsbane, tight-rooted for its poisonous wine, nor suffer thy pale forehead to be kissed by nightshade, ruby grape of Proserpine. Make not your rosary of yew-berries, nor let the beetle nor the death-moth be your mournful Psyche, nor the downy owl partner in your sorrow's mysteries. For shade to shade will come too drowsily, and drown the wakeful anguish of the soul. But when the melancholy fit shall fall, sudden from heaven like a weeping cloud, that fosters the droop-headed flowers all, and hides the green hills in an April shroud, then glut thy sorrows on a morning rose, or on the rainbow of the salt sand wave, or on the wealth of the globe peonies, or if thy mistress some rich anger shows, imprison her soft hand and let her rave, and feed deep, deep upon her peerless eyes. She dwells with beauty, beauty that must die, and joy, whose hand is ever at his lips, bidding adieu and aching pleasure nigh, turning to poison while the bee-mouth sips. Aye, in the very temple of delight, veiled melancholy has her sovereign shrine, though seen of none save him whose strenuous tongue can burst joy's grape against his palate fine. His soul shall taste the sadness of her might, and be among her cloudy trophies hung. This poem is called Ode. Bards of passion and of mirth, ye have left your souls on earth. Have ye souls in heavens too, double-lived in regions new? Yes, and those of heaven commune with the spheres of sun and moon, with the noise of fountains wondrous, and the parle of voices thunderous, with the whisper of heaven's trees, and one another in soft ease, seated on Elysian lawns, browsed by none but Dian's fawns, underneath large bluebells tented, where the daisies are rose-scented, and the rose herself has got perfume which on earth is not, where the nightingale doth sing, not a senseless tranced thing, but divine melodious truth, philosophic numbers smooth, tales and golden histories of heaven and its mysteries. Thus ye live on high, and then on earth ye live again. And the souls ye left behind you teach us here the way to find you, where your other souls are joying, never slumbered, never cloying. Here your earth-born souls still speak to mortals of their little week, of their sorrows and delights, of their passions and their spites, of their glory and their shame, what doth strengthen and what maim. Thus ye teach us every day wisdom, though fled far away. Bards of passion and of mirth, ye have left your souls on earth. Ye have souls in heavens too, double lived in regions new. This poem is called Lines on the Mermaid Tavern. Souls of poets dead and gone, what Elysium have ye known? Happy field or mossy cavern, choicer than the Mermaid Tavern? Have ye tippled drink more fine than mine host's canary wine? Or are fruits of paradise sweeter than those dainty pies of venison, or generous food, dressed as though bold Robin Hood would, with his maid Marian, sup and bowse from horn and can? I have heard that on a day mine host's signboard flew away, nobody knew whither, till an astrologer's old quill to a sheepskin gave the story, said he saw you in your glory, underneath a new old sign, sipping beverage divine, and pledging with contented smack the mermaid in the zodiac. Souls of poets dead and gone, what Elysium have you known? Happy field or mossy cavern, choicer than the Mermaid's Tavern. This poem is called Ode on a Grecian Urn. Thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, sylvan historian who canst thus express flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme. What leaf-fringed legend haunts about thy shape, of deities or mortals or of both, in Tempe or the dales of Arcady? What men or gods are these? What maidens loth? What mad pursuit? What struggle to escape? What pipes and timbrels? What wild ecstasy? Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore ye soft pipes play on, not to the sensual ear, but more endeared. Pipe to the spirit ditties of no tone. Fair youth beneath the trees, thou canst not leave thy song, nor ever can those trees be bare. Bold lover, never ever canst thou kiss, though winning near the goal, yet do not grieve, she cannot fade, though thou hast not thy bliss, for ever wilt thou love, and she be fair. Ah, happy, happy boughs that cannot shed your leaves, nor ever bid the spring adieu, and happy melodist unwearied, for ever piping songs for ever new. More happy love, more happy, happy love, for ever warm and still to be enjoyed, for ever panting and for ever young, all breathing human passion far above, that leaves a heart high sorrowful and cloyed, a burning forehead and a parched tongue. Who are these coming to the sacrifice? To what green altar, O mysterious priest, leadst thou that heifer lowing at the skies, and all her silken flanks with garlands dressed? What little town by river or seashore, or mountain built with peaceful citadel, is emptied of this folk, this pious morn? In little town thy streets for evermore will silent be, and not a soul to tell why thou art desolate can e'er return. O Attic shape, fair attitude, with breed of marble men and maidens overwrought with florist branches and trodden weed, thou silent form dost tease us out of thought, as doth eternity. cold pastoral. When old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain in the midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man, to whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all you need to know. Thank you for listening to this episode of Present Poetry. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review, share us on social media, or subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you would like to learn more about the featured poet, or you would like your work featured on the podcast, please check out the links in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.